In this video I'm going to go through various different weapons, checking their damage values on Greg the Ogre, comparing the two magazines DPS between them, and having a visualizer plus total damage values at any given time during the usage of the weapon for full reserves. So first we're going to be looking at the Izanagi Bad Omens sniper rifle, and pair it with the Wendigo GL3 grenade launcher, which has explosive light and autoloading holster. Now shooting correct with it we will hit for 68k. Wendigo's explosive light is 27k, and the normal hits 16k. And then hot swapping between these two weapons, starting with the Izanagi, then unloading 6 shots of explosive light and repeating. The more explosive lights you have, the more potent this combo becomes. For example, on a general situation you can have 6 when you start the boss DPS phase, and then have 3 more from the well and 3 more from the bubble. And when any of your teammates use something like golden gun, you may even get additional orbs. Then looking at another weapon we can use with the Izanagi is going to be Interference VI, which can roll full court, autoloading holster and spike grenade. Full court gives you more damage the further you are from the target, and from around 30 meters the interference hits for 21k per shot. Unfortunately I don't have autoloading holster on this one, so I'm just going to use a Wendigo with backup mag to simulate using this weapon. Using backup mag is a little bit of cheating since I'm not using boss spec on the other legendaries, but I wanted to see what an ideal case would look like. And we can see that the DPS over 2 max is around 39.5k. Pairing Izanagi with a rocket launcher was something I was very curious about. It can roll cluster bomb, autoloading holster and impact casing. Hitting it on Greg will do approximately 40,000 damage, and in this test I'm using 3 clusters that hit, since the spread of it will be random and you can't guarantee all of them hitting every time. The damage of it will still fall behind the grenade launchers, but I was surprised at how decent it was. And on a boss like Riven, where you can guarantee all clusters hitting, it might actually be a pretty viable option. Next up we have Whisper of the Worm, which is pretty much the best sniper rifle in the game, and it will put out very consistent DPS as long as you keep hitting precision shots due to not having the reload. And then shooting this imaginary weak spot and editing in the proper RPM, we can see how it would perform under ideal conditions, keeping a pretty steady 39k DPS. Xenophage is arguably the easiest weapon to use on this list, since all you have to do is point and shoot. It shoots explosive rounds, which means you don't need to care about crit spots. One round deals about 15k damage. And using Actium Warwick on Titan we can unload the whole reserves without having to reload, since the extra deck does it for you. Here's another weapon that does explosive damage called the 1000 Voices. Painting Greg once with it does around 65k damage, which isn't bad at all. Using a reserve perk only gives it 1 extra ammo, but the DPS over its whole reserves is pretty comparable to the Whisper. Next up we have the king of shotguns, the 4th Horseman. Finding out values for this weapon was actually pretty difficult, since the game doesn't show you all of the pellets if you just use it normally, so you have to stagger the hits. Here I have clips of a couple of attempts I did in slow motion. The crit multiplier for pellet shotguns is 10%. In this one I'm confirming that the final hit is indeed 2120. And in this one finding out what the 3rd shot pellet value is. I also did a little test run in the tribute hall to confirm these values. Since the 4th Horseman unloads its shots so fast, 2 max DPS is going to be incredibly high. For burst damage it's easily unmatched. Much like the Izanagi's burden, we can pair a couple more weapons with another for gain. Witherhoard can be used to do damage over time to the target while you shoot it with a secondary weapon. It also has autoloading holster with the catalyst. When you tag an enemy by shooting directly at it, it ticks 17 times with high potency. and shooting at the ground creates an AoE that ticks and expires faster at 25 ticks. Both of the methods do similar DPS and can be used at the same time for around 13k total DPS. Here I'm confirming that it is indeed 25 ticks. First weapon we're going to be pairing with the Witherhoard is the Falling Guillotine sword with checked edge, Swordmaster's Guard and Whirlwind Blade. We are also going to be using Loosened Blade for increased sword charge rate. Light attack hits for 13k, and the heavy attack for 6 times 10.8k, totaling to around 65k per heavy. Now doing 6 light attacks into a heavy attack combo. Based on me and others testing, it's not worth trying to go for the 5 light attacks. Repeating this combo twice for quotes 2 mag DPS for comparison's sake. And then looking at the damage for the whole duration. Note that switching the Witherhoard removes Whirlwind Blade stacks, so the DPS will be less in reality over time. Next up we have a sword only available for hunters, the Goldtusk. When used normally, its DPS falls behind the Guillotine just like any other sword, but if you do specific jump aerial cancelling, you can pull off DPS that surpasses it. For more information on this, I have a link to a Reddit thread in the description. The DPS numbers between Goldtusk and the Falling Guillotine look closer than they are when compared like this, due to the fact that the Guillotine spikes at every heavy while the Goldtusk is more consistent in its average DPS. I might have also done the combo slower than what's actually possible, due to only practicing it recently. The difference between an optimal Goldtusk and a Falling Guillotine should be around 14%. And the final weapon to pair with the Witherhoard is a linear fusion rifle from Season of Dawn, Line in the Sand, with firing line, rapid hit and liquid coils. I did a test shot on Greg for 26,800. His hit amplified by firing line is 32,964. At 2 max, the DPS of this weapon is 29,500, which really isn't anything to write home about for a heavy weapon. However, pairing it with the Witherhoard still gives it pretty decent DPS. Now we're looking at everyone's favorite weapon, the Anarchy. Tagging the enemy with 2 grenades gives us 10 seconds of damage over time that ends up dealing around 150,000 damage and 15k DPS over its duration. It's worth noting that if the enemy is large enough, you can attach multiple sets on it, as long as the grenades don't connect for even larger gain. And there is no Anarchy without Mountaintop. On Greg, one shot is 25k. The value of Mountaintop was never its DPS, but the ease of use, range and its synergy with grenade launcher mods. With this weapon sunsetting in Season 12, we're going to have to look for a replacement for this combo. Currently a top pick seems to be Truth Teller, but even with the best perks it's still weaker than the Mountaintop. A new addition in Season 11, First in Last Out, is a beast. Pairing this with the Warble weapon and Assault Mag, it's pretty much the top special weapon for boss damage. A single shot hits for almost 27,000. Unloading 1 mag and then reload cancelling the rest of the reserves is the best way to use this weapon. And pairing this shotgun with Anarchy gives us a very impressive 49,000 DPS over 2 magazines. Looking at more special weapons, this time the distant Tumulus with firing line and clone cartridge. Doing a shot on Greg with firing line active hits for 12,500. And then testing a perfect scenario where you start with 11 shots in the magazine and clone cartridge refilling another 11. Clone cartridge has a chance to give you 1 to 4 bullets and they are taken from reserves, instead of for example when you have triple tap or 4 times the charm. In fact, the best sniper for total damage output is the reintroduced Ikelos sniper, which also has a firing rate of 140 RPM. A good usage for a sniper that has less average DPS but more total damage is for example Argos or Insurrection Prime that have longer DPS phases. There is one more weapon type that I wanted to test, and that is the fusion rifle. I'm using this Proelium FR3 with rapid fire frame and liquid coils. One shot does 19k damage. And over 2 max its DPS surpasses the Mountaintop, but it has way less range, making it harder to use. You notice that I'm just using this weapon with no damage perks. The fusion rifle from Garden of Salvation, Zealot's Reward, actually has high impact reserves and autoloading holster that could be used to boost the damage of this archetype and become a decent option to pair with Anarchy. However, it still gets shadowed at close range by First and Last Out, and at range by the distant Tumulus. And here's one final comparison between all the weapons reviewed in this video. And that's it for now. There are weapons that could have made it into this list, such as the Prospector, Legend of Acreus, Darcy or even Divinity, but I tried to keep this list for mostly the popular boss DPS options. Some archetypes I wanted to test out of curiosity, like diffusion rifles at the end. Hope this video was informative and a place you can return to in case you need to recheck a certain piece. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, consider subscribing and sharing the video. Thanks for watching.